We are going to make some pie dough, which we're going to use to make the quiche. Now, this is the hardest part of the process, and by hard, it's just that it's tedious. I'm gonna go ahead and use the food processor to make the dough, but you can actually also use a stand mixer, or you can use your 5 out of 10 digits, but I'm not even going to do that much work. So here I have 10 ounces of flour and 1 teaspoon of salt already combined. And then I took 2 sticks of butter, so that's 8 ounces. And I cut them into chunks. It really does not have to be perfect, and the more irregular actually the better. So some of these are really small and some of them are much bigger. I'm just gonna toss them in here. Now if you were gonna do this by hand, you'd have to put that in the bowl and you'd rub the butter between your fingers until you got like the varying sizes. So I'm just gonna cut out a little bit of the work for myself. And then in this container I have 3 ounces of water, but I'm just gonna set that aside for a while and we'll get there eventually. So with this, you don't wanna just switch on the mixer. You wanna pulse so that it doesn't overmix. How you're gonna get a nice flaky pastry is by having those chunks of butter in the dough. So I just pulse a couple times and then just kind of check to see what it's looking like. See that you have pieces like this that has not been touched by the blade at all, and then you have some smaller pieces that are starting to get there. Now ideally we don't want to have this bigger piece, so we want to get everything round about this size or a little bit smaller. Here's a nice little fleck right there. Okay, so I'm going to give this a couple more pulses. Alright, that should be good. Now, you could mix this entire dough in the food processor. I personally don't like to add the water in here because it's very easy for it to get overmixed. So I usually just get a bigger bowl and dump out this mixture. Again, be very careful with this blade because it is very sharp. Alright. So as you can see, we have some nice chunks of butter in here. Some pieces still a little bit big, but for the most part it's small. Okay, so because I don't want to overmix, this is how I add my water. I just kind of drizzle it over the top so that the flour is evenly coated. And the thing when you're making pie dough is that a lot of times it's going to seem like you don't have enough water, but you don't want to pour more water in here because I mean we're not making dumplings. So I like to pour about half and then toss everybody together. And then I'll pour the remaining amount in the same fashion all over everything so it's evenly moisturized. Alright, so now you see it's holding together. And it's, as you can see, I'm not kneading it just yet. I'm just kind of tossing it so that the wet pieces touch the dry pieces and everybody gets moistened nicely. So once I have that now, at this point now, I'll start pressing it together. See, that's holding. Do not be tempted to add more water. So at this point, you can be a little bit more vigorous to try and get everybody to come together. Okay, so we got the dough together. It still looks a bit rough, which is fine at this point. I bought some pie tins, and I'm kind of guesstimating at how much dough I will need. I want the dough rounds to be about 6 ounces for each pan. So I'm just going to use this dough cutter. And if you can look and see how you're seeing some streaks of butter in between, that is exactly what's going to give you that nice flaky crust in the end. So that one's a little bit big. Let's take off a little piece. So 6. I think I'm going to get about 3 dough balls out of this. 6. 7.5. That's a little bit too small for me. Alright, let's see how much we have left here. About 2 ounces. Alright, we'll just kind of share it up evenly among the 3. So each dough ball is going to be just a little bit more than 3 inches. Now here, as you can see, I'm not kneading the dough. I'm just trying to get it a bit round, seeing as that's the shape it's going to be in the end. So, you know, obviously it makes no sense making a square if what you're going to try and do in the end is roll a circle. So just like that, it's fine. Doesn't have to look perfect. And again, look at those beautiful streaks of butter going throughout the dough. Alright, we're just going to wrap each of these in plastic. So we're going to have 3 small quiche. So these are just going to go in the fridge. And I pull them out one by one when I'm ready for them. I think I grossly underestimated the amount of time I said. I probably said something crazy like 7 minutes. Alright, it's been about 12 minutes. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the rice out and allow the inside to cook a little bit. Now remember when I was cutting this one, I mentioned that the dough likes to pull to the inside. So what I probably should have done to avoid that was to allow it to hang over a little bit more before cutting it. But you know, every fault is a fashion. This one, the side of it is kind of falling to one side, but at the end of it all, it's going to taste great. So you can see that the rice did a fairly good job at pressing the dough down and keeping it still. But you realize if you look at here and you look at in here, you can see that in here is still a bit raw. So I'm going to put this back in for about 5 minutes or so. Hopefully I'm being honest this time. And that will just help to kind of dry out those moist bits before we start putting in the fillings. Okay, so I pulled this guy out a little bit before those because of course the less crust needed less time to bake. The bottom is a bit more cooked than I would like, but again, we roll with all the punches. So I'm gonna go ahead and let me start with the vegetable one first and then move into the meat one. So this one I think I'm gonna do the mushroom and the mozzarella. Let me just get a spoon, that might be helpful. Oh looky, here is a rogue fork. Okay, so you're just gonna throw whatever fillings at the bottom. I don't think I'm going to use all, that's plenty. And then you want to sprinkle in your cheese, and again that's a lot. I think I'm going to do all the filling and then I'm going to do all the pouring as well. Keep going. Okay, so now onto the spinach one. Yeah, that looks good. And we're doing feta with the spinach. So I'm gonna mix it a little bit. And whatever feels to float will float, and whatever feels to stay sunk will sink. I think I can put a touch more spinach while I'm at it. Now for the bacon one. So I'm going to put some of the broccoli. The mashed potatoes I'm just going to mash up a bit. And it's going to want to clump up, which is fine. toss the bacon. Cheese. Okay. So this custard is made of sour cream, milk, and eggs using the same ratio. So I use 2 eggs here, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna need all of it, but we'll see. Any leftover custard you have, sometimes I'll just pour it into a small container and bake it off all the same, because I mean, it's still quiche. Without the crust it's not as fun, but say what, waste not, want not. So I just have a little bit left over. I'll probably pour that in something and bake it. And then these were just cream, milk, and eggs. So fill that up all the way up. I'm silly. Oh, there must be a little hole, see? So it's dripping. Again, no worries. Go with the flow. Once it says dripped as much as it can drip, it will just stop. Simple as that. And that's it. It goes into the oven. Just open the door, stick them in, and I'll see you when they're all done. Alright, and here we have it. They're all done. This one was finished before the others because it had less liquid in it. When they just come out of the oven, they're a bit puffy, and then as they set, they flatten out. So I think overall, pretty good. I actually like this one more now. And the ones with more crust, I don't know. We'll see. I'm sure it tastes very good. And I'm tired. Bye-bye. Gobble, gobble, gobble. Why are you still recording?